There is no host, only Zool.
There is only Zool.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Out of Character.
Woo-hoo.
This is episode 7.
Yes, it is.
And-
Yay!
And today we'll be discussing D&D for beginners.
Yeah, and I think this is like really exciting because we just came back and filmed our next episode of Intrigues of Etter Isle, which we've been waiting for. And when we got back into the room, it almost felt like we were beginning all over again. So in the spirit of beginning again, here we are.
Taking a look at how it all started.
In the beginning.
Genesis chapter 1.
No, but when we're talking about D&D for beginners, there's a lot that really goes into it. And I think thinking about the first time we all played or the first time that anybody plays, there's a lot of apprehension that goes into it. And there's a lot that you probably walk away from that game thinking like, that was really hard. Like for me in particular, it was getting into character was so hard for me. I could not wrap my head around playing a character and having that character have a voice that was separate from my own. Everything was, well, I walk up to this rock and I lean on this rock. Like it was, I couldn't separate that. It was very strange for me.
That actually reminds me, because that you talked about the rock, it is the awkwardness of starting when you really don't know that you're allowed to say whatever you want and talk however you want. I remember our first playthrough, we actually stumbled into a rock situation where it was like, okay, I can do whatever I want. And I remember the DM was like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And I was like, well, I'm going to climb up on this rock. And then after I said that, it was the next 3 people going, well, I'm going to climb up on the rock too. And I climb on the rock. And then the DM just saying, you're on the rock. Yeah. And it was so obscure of like, why are we doing this?
Because we can.
Because you can.
Well, to kind of piggyback off of that, it was a lot of, okay, well, we can do whatever we want. And in our mind, it was, oh, well, we're going to get up on the rock and we're going to look around. But we didn't know that we had to say, I'm going to look around. It's those little things in the game. It's like, of course I'm looking around.
I've got 2 eyes.
So that's what
like, you guys were looking around. I was looking at the rock.
That's a nice rock.
Some solid rock.
I don't know. What do you think, Vic? What was the hardest part about playing that very first time?
So I think some of it is kind of what you say, like what you said was when you walked away. But I think mine was beforehand, not having an idea, like even with y'all explaining it to me, not having like forming expectations in my mind of like what to expect, which in a way is good. Like, okay, stay open-minded, but really like until we sat down and started playing, no clue. And even like just trying to soak it in as it happened. I think that was the big thing. And like you said, like actually playing a character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and it's funny because we can explain it to people all day long. Like, oh no, it's just a fun game. It's a collaborative storytelling. But you really don't understand until you actually play. Yeah. Because you can do collaborative storytelling in a lot of different kinds of ways, not without the game. But I think just the game setting, the fact that you're rolling dice and some things that you want to do in the story just don't happen the way you want them to. It's like having that pushback almost in that game. Mm-hmm. There's no way to explain that part of it without playing.
Right. Yeah.
I will say that after, because I used to always say it was collaborative storytelling. That was my go-to.
I feel like I still think that's the best
Yeah.
way to explain it, but
There was many times like we would have coworkers come up to us and they would say, "What is that thing you're talking about all the time?" And for the very beginning, I was nervous to even say I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons because I didn't want to have any kind of stereotype placed on me. I was like, no, I don't need this. So I would always say, oh, we do collaborative storytelling, improvised storytelling, and I just kept going that route.
Mhm.
But then I figured out after playing it, for me, the best way to describe what it is, it's collaborative people watching. Because if you
we need
are
t-shirts. We need t-shirts.
if you're one of those people who just loves people watching, this environment is absolutely fantastic because you don't get to see the outward physical traits of people watching. You have to pay close attention to what every character is doing or saying, and you have to mentally imagine it. And you get so invested in really like you want to hear more from other people because you want to figure that person out, and that forces the story to go along because you kind of just say, well, I'll try going along with whatever this foolish thing you want to do is just to see what happens.
See what happens.
So I'll get up on the rock with you. Why not? Like it's people watching for me.
Yeah. One, I think those things that make it really difficult, of course, they are very inherent to the game. Like you need those things in order to have a fun, successful game. But in the beginning, I think it can also be really helpful to take some of those mechanics out. So I want you to talk a little bit about your first time playing because you have a little bit of a different experience your very first time playing.
Because I'm incredibly old.
Oh, shush your mouth.
Well, no, but yeah, because it's like, like the first Dungeons and Dragons edition I played was probably second edition, which even though it's not that long ago, it sounds like it's a long time ago. But it was a matter of my brother wanted to play, and the ages we were at is just we weren't there to do the character sheets, do all the math, know exactly every single detail of every single thing we're supposed to be doing, which, as an adult, if you're playing with a good group, it's a reasonable expectation of everybody. But it was a matter of, we were just, this is your character, this is where you're at. What are you going to do? Use your imagination. And my brother took on, the aspect of, he's GMing, controlling all the monsters, everything like that. But he's also making roles for our characters when we finally decide to do something. So it was very simple, like the simplest possible form probably of Dungeons and Dragons you could have as a player, because it's like all you're using is your imagination. You don't need anything else. You don't need to know, advantages and initiative rolls or anything. It's just, I want to stay on the rock and I want to do a backflip to get up there, and then boom, he does whatever, rolls are necessary to make that happen.
Or not happen.
Right.
Yeah, or not. Yeah, I was like, that's how it's going in my mind. Oh, it didn't happen that way? Okay.
But I really like that idea of taking that part out of it for a beginner, because I remember myself playing and being so worried about the numbers and what exactly it was I was rolling for, and learning all of that vocabulary. The amount of skills on a character sheet, it's insane looking at it for the very first time, that first time you're playing. It's so intimidating. So taking out all of that, I think, is so helpful for a beginner. So that's really awesome that you had that as your first experience and you were able to kind of add in more, I guess, more difficulty level, I guess, as you go along.
I actually stumbled
Yeah,
in. Go ahead, Hoppe.
I mean, I was gonna say too, like it's the thing too, like playing with my brother now as an adult,
Maybe not.
like trying to get what?
Sorry, we lost you again.
Wait.
You froze. Can you start again?
I was saying, like starting to play again with y'all, and now like playing again with my brother, and trying to play with my niece and get her into it. It's a matter of I'm a little jealous of. I feel like how much better a player she is than me, like as an adult, because like we're making her make the dice rolls and do math and all that kind of stuff just to sort of make her do schoolwork, while playing. But as a matter of like her imagination is just off the charts sometimes, and it's like trying to GM for it's like, okay, just because you want there to be a veterinary hospital here in the forest doesn't mean there's a magical veterinary hospital here in the forest. Let's take it down a notch. This is what you see. What do you want to do?
Well, honestly, when you think about it, in any artistic field, that is the innate sense of what people struggle with, is that as kids, we have much more freedom in our imagination and just going with the flow of things. And then as we progress through society, we lose it. It's that whole Pablo Picasso idea of as a child, you have an artist as a child, and they learn to grow out of artistry as they become an adult. And I feel like that's what we stumble into, because we actually have tried to do this with kids before in our profession, and they loved it. But I remember the few of us who were there and were jamming at different tables, we had vastly different stories, even though we had the same set scenarios. Mm-hmm. We would meet each other and go, what did your kids do today? And it would just blow us away. With some of our quietest, shyest kids came out with some very gruesome characters and would leave just skipping out of the classroom, but they were savage for 30 minutes.
Literally savage.
Yeah.
Again, like stuff to like make me jealous. Like, why aren't I that good? Like, this is their first time playing. They're way better than me.
But I think it does go along with what you said, Michael. A lot of our imagination and just our willingness to be silly and take chances really does go away with age, which I'm not going to lie is one of the reasons why it took me so long to play in the first place. There's a lot of stigma behind, oh, you play Dungeons and Dragons? Oh, you're such a loser. Oh, how nerdy. No, it really is. But like, I guess I definitely think there's a pendulum that swings back around, and you're like, oh, no, I want to do all of these things that make me stand out, that make me a better person, that make me more creative and make me think a little bit more. And then like allowing yourself to have that freedom and be creative, you kind of become a kid again.
Which honestly, when you talk about that pendulum, what I'm noticing, like I said before, when I first started delving into this, I was very embarrassed to have anybody even mention around me that we played, because whenever my family caught wind of what I was doing, I was like, I'm going to hear this from my sister. I'm going to hear this, and it's never going to die down about how nerdy I am. And it hasn't. But what I love is when people who give me grief about playing a game in this format, and that idea of, oh, you play make-believe, you play dress up in your mind, which I love, is when they give me grief on that, but then they comment on me as an artist, and they're like, you're so good at public speaking, or you always seem to have a way of knowing what to say to the right thing to the right person, and it comes effortlessly to you. Or you improvise so well in music, you come up with lyrics, you come up with harmonies, they're just like, it just comes naturally. You're so gifted. And I'm like, I'm not gifted. I had a gift, but I honed that craft through things like this. And I always come back to them like, oh, well, that's exactly what I do in D&D. And then I get to have that conversation with them of, it's the same skill set. It's an artist's skill set. Everybody is an artist. Everybody has it in them. It's just that we hide from it and we deny ourselves artistry because we are ashamed of it in society.
And I guess I think I'm super lucky in that instance, because any sort of like creativity or artistry that I have I feel like is a very different venue. Like, yes, there's some imagination that goes into it, but like, I just feel like what I've done is different. But my brother started playing D&D like 3 years ago, maybe, with people he worked with. And it was a really cool situation. And I don't know if my poor parents, like, one, they're great and open-minded, but they also like had a child who was very into like fantasy and sci-fi and read a lot and So I don't know, like I feel like we were very lucky when my brother was like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. I was like, oh, that's really cool. Okay. So we like I don't get grief from my parents, but I definitely like people have there are people who are like, you do that? Like, oh, that's so nerdy. Like, oh, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You're
It is a
missing
lot.
out.
Well, I think too, even at work, like Vic's, the first one to drink the Kool-Aid and sort of join us, but it's like
We're a cult. We're a cult.
spoilers for no, but it's like Vasquez said, like a lot of people ask about us, a lot of people talk to him as. Some people talk about us more than others, but it is a matter of, well, you should just come play with us. No, I can never do that. I can never do that. And it's like some of them were like, you would be perfect for this. Like your personality, your demeanor, like this stuff, but they're just like, no, I can never do that. But it's like, no, you do it on a daily basis. You just don't realize you're doing it.
Exactly. Well, and I think what it comes down to is because I know like we're all kind of talking about like getting into character and like the actual mechanics of the game being kind of what we struggled with the most at the beginning. But in talking to people before they start playing, a lot of their apprehension is, well, I mean, I don't think I have that much imagination. And that, and I completely not sympathize. I feel that because I'm the same way. I don't think I have a lot of imagination, but then once we start playing and get into character, I see how much I can jump into the story, and that story, we're all a team building that story, and that's where that imagination comes from. But I feel that. I can definitely relate when people say, well, I don't have a lot of imagination and that's why I wouldn't be able to do it.
Well, and I think it's daunting to think you're entering a story, but something to remember is, like you said, Kat, like it's all of us building it, and there's so much playing off each other that happens.
But that's also like a good thing for new players, because even like doing it with the kids, there may be that one that, they get it. They don't know they get it or not, but just their imagination's there and they're doing it. And as kids, it's usually follow the leader. But it's like, like with anything, like that's how you get better at it. It's like, I feel like, I've gotten better as a player the more I've played with y'all, the more I've just played in general, because it's a matter of, taking out the dice rolling. It's just like, I feel like I can play a character better now than when I started, and it's just every now and then I have to roll a dice depending on what I'm deciding to do as a character.
What I love, when you really think about it, and actually the more and more I think about it, I'm noticing this. We are educators. The four of us, we work in education, and when it comes down to it, when we build a skill in any of our students, it's always subtle manipulation. I love teachers because we are master manipulators.
Oh, absolutely.
And it sounds horrible, but we know exactly what we have to
roll
do.
For deception.
To make something happen.
To make something happen. And what I've noticed is that once you get someone in that first step, which is what we're talking about, that hard, how do you get them in? They struggle. They usually do. It's the mechanics. It's first they have the fear of, I couldn't do that. That's not me. And then once you get them at the table, they see the mechanics and they get paralyzed, and they don't even try to go beyond that because they're more worried about making mistakes, which is what our students do. However, usually we have lots of skills, lots of tactics as teachers. We'll pair people up. So I'll find a strong player, and there's times I've even, I remember when we were going to play our first one shot, and I said, Hobby, you need to probably consider staying with Vic because you're going to do a spellcaster. She's going to do a spellcaster. Maybe you should stay with Vic. Like, you start moving people and the pieces around and try to pair up players to help each other out. You also know that people can't have experiences if they don't have a background knowledge to play with. You can't improvise if you have nothing to draw from. So whenever I play with people and I can tell they're shyer, I will fully put out ideas and do kind of overplaying characters and NPCs to give them more ideas of like, oh, I have this option. I can play these actions. Oh, that's a bonus action. You keep saying the word bonus action. What do you mean bonus action? You have to throw stuff out there and model. And that's what we do every day as teachers, which is why I think it came faster to us. Once we got past the trepidation of how do we do this, we started seeing the tricks of, okay, I know how to make these people feel more comfortable. And then when we play with other people, I remember we were trying out when we were first trying to put the channel together, we were like, let's try playing with a few people and see if we have somebody who'd want to join our channel. And we did not auditions, but
they were auditions. They were auditions.
But we did meetups with people. And even in that setting, I noticed all of you as players were trying to make that person feel comfortable and come out of their shell. And you're being teachers. And I think that's what you really need to get those people to finally let their guard down. You have to have a teacher. You have to have somebody who is really smart in manipulating without letting them know it.
Yes. Well, and making them feel safe. Like, so I love the word you used, overplaying your character, because when it's just like when we're in a classroom and we're really trying to get someone out of their shell, we will act overly silly. We'll be over enthusiastic so that that student feels comfortable and safe doing the same thing, maybe not to the same level we are, but just a little bit more. So you're exactly right. When we did play with new people and we wanted to see if we would have chemistry as a group, I know you did this too, Havda, we would really overplay how we usually do. We would make a lot of jokes. We would laugh a little bit harder at the things that we normally laugh at, to kind of let that person know this is our group. This is how we usually play, and kind of seeing if they were willing to rise to that. And that's really how you make people feel comfortable and safe in a group environment, is you make yourself look a little bit silly so they feel comfortable making themselves look a little silly and be comfortable making mistakes, quote unquote, because there are no mistakes. And that's one thing that I think a lot of people, there are things that have consequences, but they are not mistakes.
I mean, there are some mistakes in the game, but if you're trying to do something, it's not wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, let me jump to this volcano and see what happens. It's probably a mistake. It's probably a mistake.
Well, not if you wanted to do it.
Planning for this episode, I hopped on Twitter maybe a couple hours ago and actually was looking into this, just looking to see if anybody has commented on getting people started. And whoa, the amount of messages per day that are just, there was one recently, it was like, I'm trying to get my brother to play for 99 days. He keeps saying no, he'd be perfect at this. But now that it's 99 days later, I think I've convinced him, but now he says, oh, y'all have gone too far into the story. I don't want to start. Or like, it'll be too late for me to jump in. There's so many people who are fighting this issue of how do I get someone just to put their toe in the water?
Yeah.
And I think you hit on it, where we might be able to talk on this on another day of further of how do you limit the mechanics just to make the fun, or not the fun, but the RP side come out more. There was another person, I really wish I would have had her handle. It was phenomenal. But she was saying that she's working with a 4-year-old in her family, and the way that she had come around doing it is instead of rolling with like numbers, each action it could take had a separate colored die associated with it.
Oh.
So it was color coded, and I was like, that's brilliant. As a teacher, I love that. You just color coded something, so if you're going to be strong, use red. If you're going to do something where you're trying to be sneaky, I want you to use gray. And there are ways we could really think about changing the mechanics to suit speed, efficiency, but you're still teaching that you have luck, because that's all the dice. That's all dice games are. It's just luck. It's putting randomness and luck into your decisions.
Yeah. Havda, I wanna know, like, what are some things that you are doing for your niece? Because she's brand new to role-playing game. So what are
One
you
day
doing?
old.
1 day old.
One day she came out and rolled the dice.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, she came out with that D20 where she called it. I guess, like, which one did I roll? The pretty one? Yes, you rolled the pretty one. Like, anytime you're trying to do something, roll the pretty one.
Well, no, and that's something right there. Like, kind of having, because if you were to tell her every single time your D20, your D20, your D20, that's a lot of numbers for her to remember. So what you saying the pretty one, it's another verbal cue for her to be like, oh, it's this one, always this one.
Well, and it's her relation to it.
Yeah.
Like, it's what it is to her. It's not that the D20 doesn't mean anything to her. That's how she sees it. So label it the way she sees it.
Love teachers.
Exactly.
Shout out to all of our teachers out there who are watching this, because once again, it's that bank of knowledge. If they've not grown up talking D20, D12, D any of that, it means nothing to them. It's meaningless. But if you meet them with their own vocabulary, sure, it's the same game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But there is a lot of that going on. I mean, because like perfect example, because, you know, I can't say no to my niece. She wanted to be a unicorn. So I figured out how to make her a unicorn. But it was like when she hits, I'm like, okay, you're going to roll your damage, you know. When she was like, oh, yeah, the one that looks like my horn. That's what I'm rolling for my damage. I was like, yes, the D8, you know. It's stuff like that and stuff she's constantly trying to do in the game. You know, she's picked up on some of that vocabulary where it's like, you know, in her little sassy way where it's like, okay, give me a roll the pretty one. She goes, let me guess. Investigation. I'm like, yes, you're trying to find something, you're gonna roll for investigation. Just roll and shut up.
And next time we're going to talk about being encouraging to new players.
Positive reinforcement.
Do you want unicorn to die? That's a unicorn dies.
No, but I think that's perfect.
It's like I say, for like me, like I've seen myself grow as a player. I've seen her grow as a player in, you know, the few sessions we've had where it is, you know, at first it's a struggle to do anything. And now it's like, you know, the mechanics are slow in coming, but, you know, she's starting to pick up on them where it's like, you know, by no means, you know, is she going to know what every single, you know, thing on that page means anytime soon, but it's like the stuff that's happening consistently, you know, she's picking up. And for me, like, I'm enjoying the fact that her father's a math teacher. I'm enjoying seeing her like get better at the math stuff where, you know, at first it's, you know, okay, I'm gonna roll the pretty one. Oh, I got 19. Okay, no, add 7. And then it's, you know, and now it's, you know, 27. Like it just, you know, like whatever she rolls, she's getting the I'm not the math teacher. Yeah, I'm not the math teacher. But some of those numbers like that she would take 5 minutes to like count out in her hands, she's picking up on faster, you know, sort of thing. Not that has anything to do with Dungeons and Dragons, but it is, you know, it's still something useful in life and as a player, you know, in the future when, you know, if she is a barbarian or something in the future where it's like, okay, I have to add this and add this and add this. You know, something like that, you know, it's a life skill and a D&D skill.
I like that. I like that you are like you're setting the foundation and allowing her to build skills in her own time. And so she's learning at her own pace. And I love that. And I think that's what's most important in all of this is everyone is on their own timeline. We can try to convince people to play as much as we can, but people are not ready until they're ready.
Right.
Which I love that you said starting at your own pace, because if I could give any advice, if somebody does finally put their toe in and say that they want to play, it is absolutely okay for them to just sit at the table and RP. You don't have to make them do anything. You don't have to make them have a character sheet. You could just say, I want you just to be here and just be at the table and get a feel for it, and let them just get used to talking to other people or hearing the story. And then if they say, well, could I try something? Hand them a dice and just say, you know what, just roll that and tell me what number it is. And you do the numbers for them, just like you and your brother were doing. It's okay to have some people at your table playing one way and another person playing differently.
Differentiated instruction.
Make some accommodations.
Yep. Or modifications, depending on the student.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. I love talking about beginning players because I love seeing people get into. I almost said this sport.
It might as well be one right now with what's going on.
In my defense,
Right?
I was exhausted
I was gonna
after
say-
playing yesterday.
Yeah.
We recorded yesterday and it got home and I just passed out.
No, but it's so fun seeing people get involved in this game and seeing people get excited about it, because I'm not gonna lie, it is something, and I think this is a lot of the apprehension as well, is people see how committed other people are to it, and they know how much time it takes up, and they know that if they get into it, they're probably gonna like it, and it's gonna take up that much of their time also. So I love seeing people jump in and fall in love with this game the way we have all fallen in love with this game. So let us know down below let us know about your first game and what was so hard about it. I love hearing about stuff like that. So that's what I want to know for this episode, is what happened during your first game that you struggled with or you would wish would have been different. But be sure to subscribe to our channel below and click the bell for notifications for all of our new content. We might be going to every other Wednesday after this.
You know what?
Possibly.
The best way you're going to know is by clicking that notifications, because you'll know every day it comes on. Yeah.
Because knowledge is power.
Shooting star.
All right. Until next time. Bye.